Well, welcome everybody to episode 9, Distance Learning Playbook Unpacked. This week we're going to talk about Edpuzzle, and we brought in a teacher, Kori Wanner. Did I pronounce that right? All right, good.
Yes.
From Creswell School District, and Kori's been using Edpuzzle in her class in a really cool way. We were doing a kind of a little training thing, and was like, "Whoa, we need to have you on." So, Kori's here to share
Yeah.
some cool ideas. So
We
thanks
met
for being
Kori
here.
and we were like, Kori, come be on our podcast because we love every single thing that you are saying about how you're using Edpuzzle in your classes. And we had a suspicion that you might even have other tips beyond Edpuzzle that you'd be willing to share with our audience. So thank you so much for being here.
We
Yeah, well,
appreciate
thank
it.
you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, I've said this to Dustin and Cassidy earlier that I don't know that I have all the answers or anything like that, but I'm willing to talk about it and share what I'm doing. And if that helps others, great. It's all part of the process here right now. We're all just kind of learning from each other.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's
Yes,
our
indeed.
tagline actually for the show. We don't have all
Yeah,
the answers, but we might have some. So
we might. We might have some, or we might know some people who do.
that's it, which is
Perfect.
increasingly becoming the case.
Yeah.
All right, Cassidy, tell us about the distance
All
learning
right.
playbook.
Well, I always like to start with what the distance learning playbook has to say. And the distance learning playbook tells us that we need to plan engaging activities and we need to think about engagement in 3 different ways: behavioral, cognitive, and emotional engagement. And the playbook gives some strategies and some suggestions that we've talked about before, like Kahoot and MindMeister. And what was the other one, Dustin, that we did last week?
I think we just Google Slides. Isn't that what we talked?
Yeah,
No.
I think so.
Is that what
And
okay.
so
I don't
the
remember.
idea is that from the playbook is that engagement opportunities are chances for students to find, use, create, or share information. And then the other thing that the distance learning playbook talks about is that students should have multiple opportunities to practice experiences sustained, right, across time. And so when we think about engagement, we want to think about engagement in a lot of different ways. But really, we want to think about ongoing engagement. And I think, Kori, the thing that really resonated for me when I first met you was you were actually talking about the way that you engage students during asynchronous times. So the other layer to this is that now we have 2 different ways that students need to be engaged. They need to be engaged when they're with us in Zoom or however we're meeting. And then they also need to be engaged when they're doing their asynchronous work in Canvas or Classroom. So we have a lot to consider when we're talking about engagement, which is why I'm really excited for you to share this first tool, Edpuzzle, because I think, if I'm understanding correctly, Edpuzzle is a tool that you can use for engaging students asynchronously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's one of our best tools actually. And yeah, this whole thing of like kind of thinking of how to structure asynchronous time for the students has been challenging for me because like, to be honest, before distance learning, I never really gave my students homework. I really structured everything within the class, because especially like I teach Spanish, and especially with language learning, it's so easy nowadays just to use online translators or like if you're doing worksheets, just copy another student's work. And it was just a waste of time. I found my students doing that more often than actually like authentically engaging in the homework practice I wanted them to. And so I just kind of gave up on it. And I was like, well, we'll just do everything in class. That way I know they're for sure getting the information. They're for sure doing the practice on their own. But of course, now we're all at home, like nothing but access to online translators and each other's answers and stuff. So when I discovered Edpuzzle earlier last year, I was just like, this is it. This is the answer to everything. And I started using it in the spring when we switched, over to remote learning. And I found it so useful. And it's like the students have to like really engage with the material the whole time. And I just feel like it really does extend the classroom in a really like productive and authentic way. And the thing about with the distance learning playbook that really resonated with me during the training was this idea of like what to do during synchronous time and what to do during asynchronous time. During the Zoom classes, it really should be about like interactive opportunities for the kids to engage and discuss and practice. And then the asynchronous time is really for like that kind of like getting additional time with the material, but something that they can do on their own, and it doesn't involve, or it doesn't need to have a second person there to be useful practice. So that's totally where Edpuzzle has come in for me.
Awesome.
Well, I am really excited. Why don't we take a look at our next slide? And then can you just tell us, I mean, we've said the word Edpuzzle so many times already in this
what
episode,
are we talking about?
What are we actually talking about? Like, what is Edpuzzle? And then take us on a deep dive into Edpuzzle.
Yeah, so Edpuzzle is it's an online tool. It's a website that has a whole, structure set up. It actually has a giant library of videos. So the whole idea behind Edpuzzle is that it's videos that teachers can set up to have questions embedded in the video. So as students are watching the video, it will pause where you set up a question, and the student has to answer that question before they move on. They don't have to answer it correctly, but they have to answer it and engage in that material before they move on to the next section of the video. So in that way, I really found that it like replicated what I used to do in class. So I teach Spanish through stories a lot. And I would have the story up on the screen and read it together, and then we'd stop and we'd talk about a section, we'd talk about vocabulary. I'd ask questions to the whole class, I'd ask questions to individuals. And this Edpuzzle just, it recreates that whole process for me digitally. And what I love about it, actually even better than what I was doing in class, is that now every student has to answer every question. It's like, instead of like, in class, like in person, there's always kids who are hanging out in the back, have their cell phone out, no matter how hard you try, or just like, glazed eyes, like not actually paying attention and don't get the material. And here they're kind of, I think, forced a little bit more to pay attention. I guess there's ways to like mute it and go through it and get everything wrong. But looking at the grades I'm getting on them, I think my kids are really watching it and really getting a lot of good practice out of it. So in some ways, it's like it might even be better than what I was doing in class.
Wow. And so you're making your own videos?
I do make most of my own videos, yeah. But like I said, there's a huge library of videos on the website that teachers can go in and search. And I usually start there and see what else is out there if it's kind of a general topic that most Spanish teachers cover. And you can find videos and you can either take it as is, or you can copy it to your own content and then edit it. So if you don't like a particular question or you want to add something, you can do that and make it your own. So that's a nice way. And a lot of times I might start there and then, just kind of adjust it to my own. But then I also do a lot of recordings of my own stories that I use in class that I've made up myself. So, but both are a great option.
I see that it's, I did notice that the free version is pretty good. You can do a lot. You can basically do everything you want, except that it limits you to 20 videos. So, yes. And can you delete some of your older videos? Can you like go through? Okay, so you can do that. You could, if you're willing to, drop the last 5 and then say, well, it's too late now. You can't do those videos. You gotta stay with the current.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so you can keep rolling 20, if you want. So that's one way you can do it. And like because I use it so much, I have upgraded to the paid version, which is one of the limitations for sure. It's $11.50 a month, but it's unlimited videos. So if you're using it a lot, and especially like for me, I'm putting a lot of time making my own videos in. I want to keep those. I don't want to have to recreate them again year after year. And I totally think that I will continue to use this even once we're back in person. So I want to keep those. So I'm willing to pay the amount. But yeah, if you're just using other people's videos and you can, delete and create or choose other ones, you can keep it going in the free version for a long time, I think.
Yeah, totally. Should we take a look at your example and see what that?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the example is one that I had students do recently.
I
Oh, I think
can't
it got
get to
it's off
it.
the bottom of the.
Oh no, see it's like behind my little guiding
You
thing.
have to hit escape.
No, what do I do? What do I do?
Oh,
I
there
just
it is.
can't solve the problem. Oh
Oh, such a
gosh.
relatable moment for
Yeah.
Yeah,
everyone
right. And then
listeners
like,
right now.
Yeah.
oh, that's just funny. All right, well, how about we just at least go to
Yeah.
Edpuzzle?
Well, so if you want to search, I think my personal one is private, but I actually got the one I wanted to share was one I found and kind of just tweaked. So if
Okay.
you want to search for Simon el Gato, Simon the cat, fine. There's tons of examples. So this is a really common. So this artist does a ton of little like 2-minute short animated videos of this cat. It's actually called Simon's Cat, but I like to call it Simon the cat because my cat's name is Simon. But but they're great, just super cute videos. Everyone loves cats. And the one I used recently, I don't see it here on the search in particular, but it was one where the cat. Oh, do you see the one say at the very bottom where there's a box in the image?
Yep.
Yeah, so that was the video I used recently. And I used this to practice prepositions, right? So like the cat's in the box, behind the box, on top of the box. And this one doesn't have any particular questions embedded.
Yeah.
Maybe we should see if there's one that has questions embedded in it. Yeah, that one has 6 questions. So you can see you would press play, you would watch part of the video, and then
you get
when
to
you
this
get to a
point,
question,
right? Yeah,
Yep.
let me see if I can just
okay.
forward it.
So I think you can, yeah. So you watch the video. Okay, so then it pauses here, and it's asking the question on the left side.
Oh,
¿Quién está
oh,
durmiendo?
it's a multiple choice question.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
who's sleeping? So you can set up either multiple choice questions, which I like because they're automatically graded and the student knows
Oh,
right or
yes.
wrong. So that's nice for that immediate feedback. You can also set up a short answer, like open-ended questions. And that way they're maybe having to think a little more deeply. And on the teacher's end, those are actually really super easy to grade too, because it will set it up so like if 10 students have answered the question, you have like 2 open-ended questions, all 10 answers for the first question are together, and you just go down the list and say yes, no, or yes, or correct or not correct, and then the whole second question set of answers are all chunked together, so you don't have to go to
Nice.
So it's actually pretty fast grading, and with the open-ended questions, you get a little bit more of a deeper.
But the students, the nice thing about the multiple choice, they get immediate feedback, so they know right away if they were getting it right or not. So that is cool. And then this also will go into Google Classroom or Canvas too, so it'll like auto import grades even, I think.
Yep. Everything. Yeah. So it's really nice. It has a nice grade book on the website for teachers to use. And it's really easy to kind of see. They do like color coding with grading and everything too. So you can see like how many kids at a glance got in the top, like 80%, and then mid-range, and then in the red where you're like, maybe I should check in with the student. But yeah, it goes automatically to Google Classroom so they can see their grade in there and have it all organized for you. So yeah, it's super
cool. And then
super easy.
As a teacher, you can go in and you can edit all these questions. So if I decide, I want this video, but I don't actually like these questions, you can go back and edit. Yeah.
Yep.
But this is pretty amazing,
so
images and everything and the answers.
Yeah, you can put in pictures and text. Like you can copy and paste, and so you have accent marks and stuff like that, which is important for foreign languages. So
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, so help me understand. How am I getting my students to Edpuzzle? Is this a link then that I share with them?
Yeah, so like Dustin said, you can link it to your Google Classroom, or I guess Canvas. I don't use Canvas, but we use Google Classroom. And so in Edpuzzle, after I've created a video and I'm ready to assign it, I can set up the whole assignment on Edpuzzle, and it will post automatically to Google Classroom. And I can even set it, if I want it to post tomorrow, I can set a time for it to post and everything like that, right? And then what will appear for the students on the classwork, assignment in Google Classroom is just a link to the Edpuzzle. And so they click on it. If you have it linked between Edpuzzle and Google Classroom, The first time they go in, they just need to make sure to choose login with Google and use their school, email account. But otherwise, there's no like join code or anything that they have to like keep track of because it's automatically linked. So it's really super easy. And then it just automatically goes into, they can find the assignment and go through the video. And I think there's like a turn in button at the end, but if they watch the whole video, they don't even have to turn it in. It'll automatically be sent to Google Classroom with the grade and everything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I really like the fact that it's kind of the single sign-on idea where they don't have to do a different username and password. It's always a pain. So that's great.
Yep.
Yeah. It sounds like a great tool. It does sound time consuming. Are you spending a lot of time with Edpuzzle?
It can be. I mean, like I said, I think if you're creating your own videos and all your own questions, it can be a little time consuming. But if you're using other people's videos that are already set up with questions and maybe just doing a minor tweak here or there, like, it doesn't take that long at all. So it just kind of depends on how you're using it. But again, I think that the time I'm spending setting it up is well worth it because of the level of engagement I'm getting from it and the the easiness of its linking between Google Classroom and the gradebook and all that stuff. So
yeah, that's cool.
Maybe a lot on the front, but not so much on the back.
We were just talking about attendance before we started recording. Are you using this as attendance as well as like if they don't come to your session, your class time, but they do the Edpuzzle, does that count for you?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we're approaching attendance is like, ideally everyone's coming to Zoom every day that we have a Zoom session. But if they do asynchronous work during the school day, then it counts as attendance for that day for sure. So yeah, so if someone doesn't come to Zoom, I will kind of check on the various assignments that are ongoing and see if they've done something. So at the very least, they've done some sort of Spanish work for the day. Yeah.
Good. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So what else do we have in here? You've got some example of a listening activity. Should we go?
Yeah, so now we're in Google Forms. So now we've switched, right? So Edpuzzle is one of your strategies, and it sounds like you're using that a lot, and it sounds like you're having a lot of success with that. But now you're also using Google Forms as a way to engage students. Tell us about that. Yeah,
so Google Forms, is part of the Google Suite, and because we're doing Google Classroom and everything, like everything Google, it's really nice because, of course, it's easily linked with Google Classroom and all that stuff. And I find it a really useful tool. So it's kind of like a questionnaire format. So you go in and you set up specific questions, in it, but I think it's a nice way to get kids to submit answers in an organized way, because on the teacher end, it will put things into a spreadsheet for you, or you can, it'll give you like metrics on questions. So like if a certain question was missed over and over again, it'll have that kind of at the top of your responses tab. You can kind of see like, oh, this is one that was tricky. Like you can kind of dive into that and maybe talk about it in class. So it has a lot of different features as part of it. And I think it's really useful. I know a lot of teachers use it for like a daily attendance check-in. So not only do they have to come and join Zoom, but they also have to answer an exit ticket or a warm-up on Google Forms. And you can see really quickly who's answered it and what their response was. So I think it's useful in a lot of different ways. I'm using it a lot as kind of practice activities. So one that I did recently, the example is I had an audio recording of myself telling a story or something. It was the quinceañera story. So it was a story about a girl during her quinceañera party. And so I had the audio linked at the top there, you can see. And then this was at the beginning of when we were starting to talk about the past tense in Spanish. And so I wanted my kids to practice listening for those verbs and hearing them and hearing kind of the sounds of it. So for this one, it wasn't graded, it was just for practice. But they had to go through, and each question was to identify the correct spelling of the verb according to what they heard. So the sentence in the story in the audio was había una chica. So they had to hear, did I say había or did I say hubo? Right. And so then they could hear it. And even though it was not graded, they would get immediate feedback when they turn it in, whether it was right or wrong. So no, you can see 0 points for it, but I had it set up so that it would automatically give them feedback. So in that way, I feel like it's kind of nice, to, again, get some practice. And I can see the results on my end very quickly and easily for everybody. And then they get some immediate feedback too. So
I like that idea, because if it's just audio, they don't need two screens. They can be listening while they go through the questions and then say like, oh, I think she said era, so she put in it. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Yeah, I was going to ask, well, what is the advantage of putting this into a form instead of just putting it into a document? But I think that I answered my own question once you started doing those drop downs. If you're wanting students to select an answer, this is clearly easier than putting it into a document.
Well, and also auto grades too.
Yeah. And I think the auto grading is part of it. And I think it's it's a matter of how structured you need the assignment to be. So like for my students, it's, they're in Spanish too. But so they still need a fair amount of scaffolding, and this form allows me to scaffold it for them. Whereas if I just said Google Doc, open a Google Doc, listen to this and type what you hear, the spelling would be crazy. That would be too difficult, and that would be really hard for me to sort through and grade and all that stuff,
Totally.
So this is nice because it's structured. They can only answer what they have to answer, and there's not with Google Document they could accidentally change the formatting or erase something or whatever. So and this also forces them to answer every question. So whether or not they actually listen, they have to put something in if they start it.
Right.
So again, kind of forcing them to stick with it, because I know right now motivation to do anything is really hard for any of us, but I think especially so any sort of little extra hey, you gotta finish it kind of thing, I think helps them stick through it to the end, especially if it's a hard task. Listening is a hard task in a foreign language. So
and I know forms are powerful. I haven't done it much, but I know you can have it so that if they get the answer wrong, they can go to another question or another set. It'll tell them maybe why they got it wrong. It takes a lot of time to put that together as a teacher, but the option's there if you want it to be.
Yep, cool. Absolutely. Yeah. Again, you can spend a lot of time setting this up, but I think it does have a lot of nice features, and it just depends on how much you want to put into it. But there's a lot of ways to support your students learning asynchronously through the forms for sure.
Right.
Yeah, when you first said, Google Forms as an engagement tool, I was thinking, I don't think of forms as being particularly engaging, but I think the ease of use, right? And the speed, it doesn't take too long to make a form. It doesn't take too long. It's not tedious for students to access the form. I think that the further we get into this, these tried and true methods that are going to be easy for students to use are probably going to be more meaningful than the things with the bells and the whistles and the images.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. However, you can put images into Google Form too. So, but yeah, it's nice because you can use it in a lot of different ways. And like you said, it's pretty straightforward, and it's not, it's already linked to everything. They don't have another sign in or anything like that. Yeah. So, and again, I think on the teacher end, it's just it gives us so much useful information, and it's well organized and easy to access. And you can even import, if you set it up right, you can import the grades back to the assignment from the form automatically, so you don't have to spend time, transferring grades and stuff. So it's really good.
that efficiency and ease of use, I think for me as a teacher would mean that I'm going to end up giving my students more opportunities to practice, because I found a way to allow them to practice in a way that isn't terribly taxing or time consuming for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you can set it up if you just want them to get the practice, you can have them retake it as many times as they want, so they can get a higher score, and you don't have to keep resubmitting or giving them a new worksheet. They can just do it on their own pace. Well, that's pretty cool.
That's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really easy to reset it too. Yeah, or just you can have it so they can edit it after submission if they're like, oh wait, I meant to. They can go back. So there's lots of ways to set it up to fit whatever you want them to do. The structure, yeah.
It's very cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
What are you doing for voice response? What is that all about?
So I've also used it to just have them submit, voice recordings. So as part of their kind of speaking practice and speaking development, I've been using an online recording tool called Vocaroo or Vocaroo. I'm not quite sure how you say it, but you can see it on the screen. And it's so nice because it's nothing but a recorder. So you can just go here and you hit the record button, you say what you're going to say, and it gives you a little link to your recording. And then I've set up a Google form where they just copy and paste that link and submit it. And then that way, again, it's all organized for me automatically, and I have the link with the voice instead of getting like a million emails, for example, or having to sift through the Google assignment. It's just the Google form is just a nice way to kind of have it all together in one place. So if you press the save and share, you get a little
link.
Voca.ro, and so they copy and paste that, and it's great, and so then this way I'm building a recorded speaking portfolio for them over the semester too.
And I think when I hit record, your audio cut out a little bit. So are you saying that you the question in the form is just put your link in here, like here's the text, record it, and then put it in? That's great. Oh wow!
Yeah. I love that.
And again, it just forms will organize it, get it into a spreadsheet for me, or just, the way that Forms organizes it, it's just so nice to keep it all together. So it's like that particular recording is all in one place because of that form. So I just find that so useful.
I could see a ton of uses for that. Having students record themselves and submit it as part of an assignment, but then are you also using that when you want to give audio feedback to students?
Yeah, I haven't used it to give them feedback yet, but I've had teachers I've taken other courses with college courses, whatever, and teachers have used that to give feedback. So I would like to start doing that when we get to the the point of having a little bit more practice with it and stuff. So yeah.
Because that's one of the limitations with Google Classroom is that you can't provide verbal feedback, but you could record, copy, and paste it, and all they have to do is click on it. So it's not quite as slick, but it's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
It's something, for sure. Yeah. So, and then I'd say for limitations is for me, especially as a language teacher, is that kids can copy and paste the text into a translator like Google Translate and not have to do the work. So, if I have them do anything where there's text using Google Forms, it's usually just for practice, or and I kind of make it as low stakes as possible, so maybe they're a little more willing to do the work, but I don't use it for assessments because of that, so that the online translator is not as easily accessed.
Speaking of that, somebody I know just told me yesterday that there is a way to get into the code of the web page and find all the answers to the quizzes that are in Google Forms. So yes, case in point, it's good to know. I know. Well,
yeah. Wow.
If you know, I mean, maybe that's worth a good grade because you know how to hack into the computer code of a website. So I mean, that's pretty impressive.
I mean, that's definitely a skill.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not the skill you wanted to test, but
exactly. Well, I can see using this in math really easily. You can have a series of questions. Students can get self-checked on that. In science, you could show them a phenomenon or something like that. You can even embed a little video in for the question and then say, what do you observe? What do you see? And they can fill that out. So yeah, I can see using forms in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different subjects. This is cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and I really see how, especially with that voice response, I mean, I really see how you are using this as a true engagement tool. You're
Right.
giving students the opportunity to practice. You can personalize it. You had that audio recording in your form. I mean, to me, that's such a great way to make your asynchronous work feel really connected to like who you are as a teacher. And, you know, you're working hard to put your personality and your voice into so many of your assignments. And I suspect that's one of the reasons why your students are experiencing so much success in your classes.
Thank
That
you.
high
That's really nice.
attendance rate.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Having good attendance for sure. Yeah.
well, thank you for coming and sharing this with us. We're just about out of time, but we're just so grateful to hear from a teacher what's working and how things are going. And we just really appreciate, we know time is a precious commodity for you right now. So we appreciate you coming and recording with us. And just a reminder to everyone that our clinic time is open every Thursday between 3 and 4. If you want to come and talk to me and Dustin, we're happy to talk to you about Edpuzzle, Google Forms, or anything related to your distance learning teaching experience right now.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, again,
thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to get to talk with you all. And you know, it's nice to be able to connect with other teachers right now, because I'm just sitting alone at my house, and you know, knowing that other people are struggling through this too, and like hearing what other people are doing is I find really helpful. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk with you all.
Yeah, you bet. Well, you know, if you're a Spanish teacher, reach out to Kori and you guys can connect and start working together. It's good. All right, everybody.
Awesome.
So have a good week and take care. We'll see you in episode 10. We're almost there. It's crazy.
Woo! See you next time.
All right.
Thanks
bye.
for watching.
Thank you.